Welcome to another episode of Let's Chat With. Joining me as attorney, author, and magician, Sara Crasson. How are you doing today?
Oh, fantastic. Thanks so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So, as I said in the intro, you are an attorney. Why did you become an attorney?
I thought that it was a really interesting path. It appealed to me intellectually, and I thought it would take me some interesting places. My father claims that he always knew I was going to be a lawyer. My first career, I worked in science museums, creating interactive hands-on exhibits. And for me, the choice to go into the law was the product of a lot of introspection and soul searching. But my father claims he always knew. I don't know if I believe that, but that's what he said.
Where did you study?
I did my undergrad at Harvard and my law degree at Fordham in New York City.
Are you a general lawyer or do you specialize in any type of law?
I'm a litigator. Lawyers in the U.S. often kind of specialize in either sort of corporate doing deals or litigating. There are other subspecialties as well. I was a generalist litigator, and now I work for a judge. And so I counsel the judge and I work with the lawyers to guide them through the litigation process.
Why that particular area of law?
It is an enormously meaningful thing to do. I get to see a broad swath of different kinds of cases. I get to do work that's really meaningful. I get to give people their day in court and I help to do justice. And that is really important and rewarding to me.
Do you have any interesting stories that you can share about being an attorney?
I'll tell you about one of my favorite cases. We had a case about an organization called Alcor. And I don't know if you've heard of them. Their area is cryogenics. And so what they do when you cut right down to the chase is if you are a member and you pay a fee to Alcor, when you are on your deathbed, somebody from Alcor will come. And when you are declared deceased, they will pack your body up and take you to the Alcor facility where they will perform some procedures, put some chemicals in you, and then freeze you. And if you pay them a lot of money, they'll freeze your whole body. And if you pay them less money, then they will freeze just your head with the goal of defrosting you later once the medical technology is up to the task of reanimating you. That is their theory. And so there was a lawsuit. One of the people who worked for them wrote a book about his time at Alcor. Alcor sued him. They sued the publisher. They sued his co-author for violation of a non-disclosure agreement and defamation, as well as a variety of other claims. And this was a really interesting case. I did not get to see a lot of defamation claims. It kind of made me ask the question that once you have stepped into the public sphere, as Alcor did, and said, my business is cutting off heads and putting them in freezers, can you sue somebody for saying that you don't do that well? And, we never had to reach that question, but it was a really interesting case. The standards for defamation and the story that went along with it, just a fascinating process.
Can you tell us what the outcome was?
They settled with the former employee, and the case against the publisher was dismissed. The standard for suing somebody for defamation when you are a public figure is very challenging. You have to show that they acted with reckless disregard, that they got it wrong and were reckless about it. And Alcor did not meet that standard. The publisher showed that they had gone through all this fact checking and done all this research. And yeah.
What do you think of shows that deal with lawyers or the world of law?
I tend not to watch those that much. It's a little bit of I think the phrase is a busman's holiday. It's like, I do this all day. I don't really want to watch it at night. And they're incredibly unrealistic. In reality, the process of lawyering is extremely dull to watch.
Besides being a lawyer, you are also a magician. Why become a magician?
Magic has been a passion of mine my whole life. I did my first magic show at the age of 4, and it's been something that I've always done on and off. Sometimes it's been a primary activity. Sometimes it's been kind of stuck on the back burner. But it's always been a part of my life. I wrote my Harvard thesis about how magicians use science. I worked for the California Science Center and helped them create an exhibit about how magicians use science. Then when I went to law school, I started getting questions from magicians about, how can they protect their work? What can they do? Is it true that if you mail yourself, if you make a drawing of something and mail it to yourself, that you have patent protection? And I said, I'm starting law school. I don't know the answer to those questions, but I'm going to find out. And so I did some research and I studied intellectual property law, and I found out. And not only have been lecturing to spread the true information about what magicians can do to protect their intellectual property and stop people from ripping them off, but I actually went and wrote a book, and you can see it here in the background, Own Your Magic, A Magician's Guide to Protecting Your Intellectual Property, that takes you through not only what magicians have done in the past and what kinds of intellectual property law there are, and the stories about how magicians have tried to protect themselves, but also takes you through the process of what to do once you've decided you want to trademark your stage name. How do you do that and fill the forms out?
So what inspired you to write the book?
I got a lot of questions about intellectual property law when I talked to magician friends about going to law school. It started as trying to answer my friends' questions and give them some information about what they could do. And then it really became kind of my act of service to the magic community. I met a magician. I mean, it was sort of an exercise in theory and intellectual interest for me for a while. And then I met a magician who was really suffering because of an intellectual property legal problem. Roy Coopers is a magician and a machinist based out in Las Vegas, and he makes he can make anything out of plastic or metal or wood. He can make any kind of little device. But he's especially known for coin gimmicks, and he sells them to magic shops, but he also sells them to these middlemen, I guess you'd call them. And what happened was they sell them under Roy's label, and Roy Cooper's Magic. And what happened was Roy started getting phone calls from these middlemen asking Roy, how come you're messing up my Amazon sales? And Roy said, I have no idea what you're talking about. Let me find out. Who sell them in different places, including places like Amazon. So he discovers that some guy has registered a trademark on the name Roy Coopers for the purpose of magic props, and then takes that trademark registration to Amazon and says, hi, I'm the owner of Roy Cooper's Magic Products, and I have the trademark here, and these products, which are, of course, the actual authentic Roy Cooper's products, these products are infringing on my trademark here in my hands, so take them down. And Amazon doesn't want a piece of that fight, and they say, hey, you've got the piece of paper with the registration number that says you own the name Roy Cooper's. Yes, sir, we will take them down. So then Roy, so then this guy with the trademark then starts selling his own, from what I understand, cheap, poor quality imitation gimmicks under a very similar Roy Cooper's label, deceiving people into buying lower quality products and thinking that they're getting an actual Roy Cooper's product. So it cost Roy, a year of his life, a lot of frustration, thousands in legal fees, and he eventually challenged the trademark registration, won his name back, and got this other guy's registration of his name canceled. And so that problem got solved, but it took a lot of time and money and effort, and it was a real distraction for Roy's business. Hearing that story really made me realize that this was information that magicians needed, that if magic is a business for you, if you make your rent from this, then you need to think about how to protect your intellectual property, how to protect your name and your business. So that really pushed me to start spreading the word and letting people know about this information and encouraging people to think about it. I mean, I love lecturing on the book. I just lectured this weekend, the Magicians Alliance of Eastern States, which is in New Jersey. It's a local convention right outside Philadelphia. And it was wonderful. And the reaction of the magicians in the audience and the sheer volume of questions that I got tells me that magicians are really interested in this topic, and they want and need this information. I am really glad that I can fill this need. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the first trick you ever performed?
I do, largely because I have a photograph of the show. So, and I'm happy to send you that photograph if you like, if you want to share it with the show. But it's a little box, and a coin appears.
You have a special partner named Bamberg. Can you tell me about Bamberg?
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, he'll be so delighted that you asked about him. Bamberg is a fantastic magician. He's very charismatic. He is kind of my protege. We've been working together for a few years now. We've started doing shows together. We actually just did a couple of shows this weekend at a magic convention, and he is, I think he's out right now. I think he's out clubbing. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that he was going to be invited on the podcast, or I would have
That's
seen
okay.
If clear his schedule for you. And Bamberg, I don't know if you can see. Oh yeah, here it is. See, I've got honey sprinkled around the apartment, because when you work with a bear, you end up with honey all over the place. So it's never far from arm's length when you work with a bear.
Finally, where can people find more information about you? Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, website?
I am Magician at Law on Instagram and YouTube. My performing partner is Bamberg the Bear on Instagram. You can find my book, Own Your Magic, on Amazon or at ownyourmagicbook.com. And you can also find out more about my current exciting project, Flavors of Magic, at www.flavorsofmagic.com. And that is a project that I'm working on to highlight diversity in the magic community. So we have a monthly show that appears in New York City right now. We did a virtual season during the pandemic. We started doing live shows in October of 21, and we are now doing a monthly show in Lower Manhattan at this adorable little jewel box of a theater, 3 different performers every show, and we've got all kinds of magicians doing all kinds of magic. And it's so exciting to see all the different artistic choices that we get when we have a really diverse group performing.
Well, thank you, Sara, for joining me on this episode of Let's Chat With.
A pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.